The digital clock on your nightstand glows with a harsh, unblinking red. 3:14 a.m. Your body is a leaden weight pressed deep into the mattress, exhausted to the very marrow of your bones, yet your mind is running laps through an invisible stadium of regret, old conversations, and unasked questions. You are completely, utterly motionless, and yet you feel like you have just run a marathon across rough terrain. This is the exhaustion that sleep cannot cure. It is not the tiredness of overworked muscles or late nights fueled by ambition. It is the deep, cellular fatigue of a soul that has spent too many years negotiating with its own peace. To the outside world, you are the rock, the safe harbor, the person who never loses their temper and always knows how to smooth over the jagged edges of a tense room. You are the architect of false harmony, the peacekeeper who trades away pieces of your own spirit just to avoid a raised voice or a sour look. You tell yourself that it is maturity, that it is emotional intelligence, that keeping the peace is a noble burden to bear. But tonight, in the suffocating dark of your bedroom, the bill has come due, and the currency it demands is your own sanity. Every single day is an exhaustive exercise in translation and editing. Before a single word leaves your mouth, an internal committee convenes in the shadows of your mind to filter, sanitize, and dilute your true feelings until they are entirely unrecognizable. You rehearse your sentences 3 or 4 times to ensure they carry no sharp edges, no hint of accusation, no inconvenience to anyone else's comfort. If you are tired, you say you are just a little busy. If you are hurt, you laugh it off with a practiced flick of the wrist so no one has to feel awkward about your pain. You have become so fluent in the language of accommodation that you have completely forgotten how to speak your native tongue. You sit at dinner tables or in office meetings, nodding at the right moments, offering soft smiles that never quite reach your eyes, feeling like an alien anthropologist observing a species you do not belong to. The space between who you actually are and the character you play to keep everyone else comfortable has widened into an unbridgeable chasm. You look in the mirror while brushing your teeth in the morning and sometimes struggle to recognize the eyes staring back at you. Whose life is this, anyway? Who authorized this endless sacrifice of your truth on the altar of smooth interactions? The weight of this silence is physical. It settles in your chest like a block of wet cement, making every breath feel deliberate and heavy. You remember the exact moments you learned to swallow your objections. It was a gradual erosion, not a sudden collapse. It started in childhood, perhaps, learning to read the shifting weather in the footsteps of the adults around you, realizing that your quietness kept the house safe. You carried that survival mechanism into adulthood like a parasite that eventually consumed its host. Now, every time you nod when you want to scream, every time you smooth over a slight that bruised your dignity, you feel a tiny, quiet death happening inside. It is the slow, agonizing strangulation of your authenticity. Your friends think you are strong because you never break down. They praise your patience, your ability to handle chaos with grace, never knowing that your grace is actually numbness, and your patience is simply the total exhaustion of a spirit that has given up fighting. You are drowning in a pool of your own making, and the most terrifying part is that you are doing it with a polite smile on your face, terrified that if you splash or call for help, you might inconvenience the people standing on the shore. Overthinking becomes your private torture chamber. You replay every interaction from the past week, dissecting your tone, wondering if you sounded too harsh, too needy, too loud, too present. Did you take up too much space in that conversation? Did your silence make someone uncomfortable? You punish yourself for imaginary missteps, running endless simulations of apologies for things you never even did. Your mind is a tireless prosecutor, judging your every move against an impossible standard of absolute agreeableness. Meanwhile, the real you, the messy, passionate, vulnerable, complex human being underneath the armor, is locked away in a dark basement, starving for a breath of fresh air. You have built a fortress out of white flags, and now you are trapped inside it. You wanted to avoid conflict at all costs, so you directed all the conflict inward. Now, the war is happening entirely inside your head, a brutal civil war between the self that wants to live and the self that was trained to disappear. Nobody sees the bruises because you painted them over with pleasantness. Nobody hears the screaming because you muffled it with manners. And the loneliness of this state is unlike any other. You can be sitting in a crowded room, surrounded by people who love you, people who rely on your steady presence, and feel like you are standing alone on an empty planet. How can you explain to anyone that you are drowning when you are the one who handed them the life jacket? How do you confess that your calm demeanor is actually a symptom of total detachment, that your flexibility is just the absence of a spine left to break? You look at people who can express anger without guilt, people who can walk away from a toxic dynamic without rewriting the history in their heads to make themselves the villain, and you feel a strange, aching envy. They are allowed to be difficult. They are allowed to take up space with their flaws and their fury. You, on the other hand, signed a lifetime contract to be easy, to be accommodating, to be the cushion that breaks everyone else's fall. And the price of that contract is your own interior life, slowly draining away drop by drop until there is nothing left but an empty shell holding space for other people's comfort. Tonight, the armor feels too heavy to lift. The performance is over, the curtains are drawn, and the theater is dark. There is no one to impress, no one to soothe, no peace to keep. In this raw, unprotected stillness, the terrifying truth rises to the surface like a body from a lake. You didn't keep the peace, you only declared war on yourself. The harmony you fought so hard to maintain was just a cage built out of your own suppressed voice. You are exhausted not because you gave too much to the world, but because you gave everything to a fiction, leaving nothing for the truth of who you are. Tears prick the corners of your eyes, hot and sudden, not from sadness, but from the profound relief of finally admitting the lie. You are tired. You are broken by your own compliance. And as the first pale sliver of dawn begins to bleed through the edges of your curtains, you realize that the hardest part isn't letting go of the people who demand your silence. It is finding the courage to forgive yourself for having traded your soul just to keep things quiet. You kept the room quiet, while your soul screamed in the dark.